Physician-assisted suicide is dangerous, but one of the dangerous elements of it is when the law is put into effect, they have these safeguards. So one of the primary safeguards is the definition of terminal illness. Terminal illness used to mean that somebody that was given a diagnosis that was going to end in death pretty soon. Now that's been expanded to be somebody that if they didn't get treatment, would they die? 15-year-old who's healthy but has diabetes that could live 40, 50 years getting their insulin every day. Now that is considered a terminal illness because if they didn't get their insulin, they would die in a few days. So the expansion of the term terminal to go from somebody that just had maybe a few months to live to somebody who could live a nice full life for 40 years, that's a safeguard that's not being observed very well now. When the doctor does an evaluation, sees if the patient meets the criteria according to the law, prescribes the medication, and the person commits suicide, the reporting by the physician of all that is voluntary. So a lot of times it's not even reported. There is no documentation. So as we go back to explore, is this safe? Is it being handled properly? The reason why we talk about physician-assisted suicide being such a slippery slope is because of these safeguards and not knowing, are these safeguards being maintained or not? We know that some of them have been botched, where the person didn't swallow enough medication and they had to be rushed, to the emergency room in an ambulance. And whenever the person dies, as the physician, I'm asked to forge a death certificate, and instead of putting assisted suicide or suicide as the cause of death, I need to put what was the medical illness that they actually were suffering from, cancer, diabetes, whatever thing. So whenever that diagnosis is on there and it's not suicide, the police can investigate. So there's been situations where there's been conflict in a family that one son felt that it wasn't suicide, that maybe the brother might have killed their parent. The other one says, no, dad took the medications on their own. Police can't investigate because the death certificate says they died of cancer, not because of suicide or attempted murder. Another safeguard is intractable suffering, put in there for the idea of pain that was intolerable. But now intractable suffering could mean psychological, emotional, or relational pain as determined by either the patient or the physician evaluating. Another safeguard is competence of the patient. So as we look, if a person was having a struggle psychologically, they should go to a psychiatrist for an evaluation. From my point of view, anybody who gets this life-threatening diagnosis and is thinking about suicide already shows us that there's some psychological struggle that's significant enough for them to think of suicide. That should mandate a psychiatric evaluation. But only 3% in Oregon in the last report were referred to a psychiatrist for evaluation. Another key parameter is how long you have to wait from presenting to the doctor the first time to be evaluated and then presenting the second time to get your prescription. That's only 15 days. That's such a short amount of time to be able to allow a person to clear their head, understand what's going on, sort out their life situation, find other options for fullness and richness in life rather than just 15 days later, here's your prescription to kill yourself. After that prescription is given, there's no follow-up for that person. So that person might become incompetent because of their illness, but nobody's evaluating afterwards. They just have this deadly concoction of an overdose that they're given, and then that's it. There's no witness there at the death. There's no professional, there's no family member mandated to be there. So the only objective witness is killed in the process. So we don't really know what happens in most of these cases. So these safeguards, even though they're put in place technically to not allow the slippery slope of having more people included in this detrimental and deadly process, because the safeguards aren't mandated and they're very loose and there's voluntary reporting, we don't know if those safeguards are ever being observed. The slippery slope of physician-assisted suicide is so insidious and moves a little bit by little bit each time. And as we talked about the safeguards being relaxed, more people just fall under the umbrella of who's going to die next in this process, who they're going to include. In the Netherlands and Belgium, if a child is less than 1 year old and has a birth defect, they're allowed to euthanize that child. 20% of the ones that were recently euthanized in this past year were euthanized without parental consent. Parents didn't even have a say because the physicians thought that it would be too traumatic for the parents to have to make that decision. So they took that out of their hands. Could you imagine coming in, your baby is having a physical struggle in the hospital one day, you go home overnight and you come in the next day and your baby is dead because it was euthanized and you didn't even have an option or consent in the process. If you're still uncertain about physician-assisted suicide and euthanasia, what society would you like to live in? A society that protected life, that came alongside and connected, loved a person and cared for them? Or is a society that killed a person, that didn't value human life and exterminated them quickly? As a psychiatrist, I would implore you to be cautious and extend care and love, because that's what you would want in these kind of situations.